Hello, I'm that Rob Human, and welcome to part 7 of the Tabletop Playground Mods series. In this episode, we're going to cover the cardboard figure object. And just going to dive in here, go into this, create a new object, and go to cardboard figure. Now, when you go to select a cardboard figure, you kind of have a choice on the initial base shape. You can either have round or rectangular. It's worth noting here that you're not actually bound to this entirely. This is just that initial state. So I'm just going to use the round base, and I'm not going to select a texture at this point. I'm going to hit create, and we get what looks essentially like a cardboard standee. All good. So it is its own type, so it has its own intrinsic properties, mostly dictated over here by the figure properties thing, but we'll get to that. But more or less, left-hand panel, pretty much a generic object. Here you can see that our model is the round base that we chose, and that's fine. We'll get to that in a second. But over here is probably where you're going to be working your primary thing here. So here you can select the texture that you want to use for it, and I'm going to come in here and we'll use the X-Wing because I'm a giant dweeb. So we're going to hit OK, and oh, it looks a little funky, doesn't it? Let's see if I had actually chosen. Yeah, let's back out of here. Let's just do this. This is the benefit of actually choosing the texture right off the bat. It sets the scale correctly. Of course, you can tweak it afterwards, but this is just easier. See, we have the X-Wing. Couple quick notes about this. It uses the transparency of the image to determine the cutout, just like any other shape image. And what I'm about to point out is actually true for any shape image. You'll see that there's these orange bits around it, and that is because if we were to actually go in and take a look at the texture, it's got this orange glow around it. Basically, the game has a certain cutoff point where it will consider the alpha transparency of the texture, and then it won't. There's a hard, sharp, discrete point at which it says, okay, this is not part of the cutout, and this is. So that's something to be aware of when you're laying out your textures if you use the cutout or silhouette style model. It's just particularly prevalent here. And yeah, this is what the sizes that I would have plugged in here. You can change these around to be like 6 and get them really squished, but like, ew. Let's see, Control Z doesn't, okay, Control Z does work, cool. You can adjust the height of the figure, so like you can lift it off the thing. I'm actually going to leave that at 0 for now. If your model, if you don't want your model to be transparent, you want the tombstone style, just solid bit, you can turn that off. And in this instance, the background color of the X-Wing is green for some reason. It's just the nature of the image. You'll also see that it flipped, and this is actually because this is the back side and this is the front side. So if I switch on transparency, you'll see that it doesn't flip. It kind of unflips the back side, whereas if you don't, it mirror images of it. That's just kind of a side effect of how that works. So I think it's actually good to use transparency just because it's a little more consistent. What have you. If that matters to you, there you go. Let's see here. Extra map is just like the material map over here, that mask map. You've got red as your primary color mask, green as your secondary color mask, metallic and roughness. It's just exactly the same as the mask over here. I'm not sure why they call it the extra map there. I think it's a legacy holdover thing. And you can also set the front and back to have different textures. I don't know what this will do if I use a different transparency here. So like if I use a different thing, will it... Okay, so that's funny. The silhouette will be determined by the texture front, but you can have a different texture on the back, but it will still use that same silhouette. That's good to know. I wasn't sure what the behavior there was. And you can also have an extra map for the front and the back, the obverse and the reverse version. That's pretty much it for the figure. But, you know, and this will do. What I'm going to do, though, is kind of give an alternative method to utilizing the figure. Having the floating standee is cool. I personally am not a huge fan of that particular look. I prefer the tombstone style cutout, so I'm actually going to grab this Luke color map here, and I change that to 4 so it's not squished. And you'll see that, you know, I have this same arcing shape that I have for my cards. I just kind of stole that and used that again. But this is how you get that tombstone style standee, which I personally prefer. Again, you can have the extra map that I'm going to show off here for a minute, and that's here, and that's where your primary color can start to affect things. So you can have like player ownership color represented by a little outline on the color on the standee. I don't know of a way to actually change the color of the edge on this one. Not sure what's up with that. It might change in-game, but I don't think so. I'm not sure. But for now, we'll just change that to black, just so it has a bit of a border. And secondary color doesn't actually matter because this texture, this extra map doesn't use that channel. Let's leave it to green for now. Going back to the model, though, you'll see that the model is the round bit. Hold that thought. I forgot something. If I turn on colliders, you'll see that there is a collider around the cardboard. You can actually turn that off with Cardboard Collides, where it's just now accessible through the base. Again, this is the thing I prefer doing, but you know, your mileage may vary. So if you, because of the way I've set up this texture here, you've got empty space here that you can probably do a little bit better on, but I'm gonna just turn that off because I don't actually like being able to grab it by the cardboard bit. I prefer grabbing it by the base. I feel it's a little less intrusive and getting in the way. Anyways, back to the model. Here's the round base. That's what we picked in the very beginning. You can actually change this. You can actually click on this, and I'm going to reuse the hex token that we had from the last time, and I'm going to scale that down to like 2, or maybe 1.5. And I'll rotate that to be -90. Let's turn off collisions. So you can replace the base with your own base mesh if you would like, at which point you can start to customize it, like with textures and whatnot. So like I can change this, and I can change this mask to use this, and you can see we have our own base. So this is how you can get hexagonal bases if you need it for your game. You can just replace that with a typical mesh. By default, it uses its own materials, but you can always change that, of course, by checking that again. And you can start having significant colors through masking on your base, just like it were a token or a generic model from before. And obviously, like, this is an effect of how I've created this mesh, so I can come in here and duplicate that and spin that around, and it'll be fine. And of course, I can come in and add my own collider, and I will do that. Right, I need to scale that up. There we go. Now it fits, because this is scaled, so I need to scale the collider to suit. So that's basically your standee. It's fairly intuitive, I feel. I feel like this is a bit of a stronger implementation than Tabletop Simulator to compare it to the other thing that's out there. I prefer this over that particular paradigm. That being said, I also just kind of prefer using a generic mesh from the very beginning. That way I have a little bit more control over the thickness, say. Like, there's no way to actually dictate the thickness of the thing, for better or for worse. So I will actually use, and I'm just gonna come into here and mention my own standee mod, which will be getting a revision soon, TM. So I have these standees as well that have a little bit more thickness to them, and I have a little bit more mesh control. And they're a generic model, so like they don't have some of the behaviors of the cardboard figure, but like I said, most of that is dictated by the figure properties over here anyways, so and it doesn't really matter. But yeah, so let's bring Luke into the game and real quick review what options there are in game. I don't think there are actually any. No, that's pretty much it. Like, yeah, it's pretty much a generic object once it hits the game. The only other thing that's worth mentioning is if I can get this to fall over nicely. Oh, of course, it doesn't actually fall. There we go. If I pick it up, it writes itself. And you can set that on a generic mesh as well. It's set straighten up on crap. The only other thing is, yeah, even the alt zoom is the default mesh behavior. So really in-game, there's no big difference between it and a generic mesh or generic template. But, you know, this certainly saves you 3D modeling skills if you just want to use cardboard standees instead. So that's a nice little shortcut. But yeah, that's the cardboard figure for you. Next episode I'll get into the rest and kind of blitz through some of these, because these two are related and tables are fairly intuitive, but we'll get to that. Anyways, enjoy!